Shwmae, Chloe.
What?
Shwmae.
Shwmae?
I think I'm pretty much pronouncing that correctly. Yeah,
Oh,
it's Welsh for hello.
Oh, okay. I'm really, really, really excited then for one of our awesome Welsh listeners to come and completely tell you how badly you messed that up.
I mean, considering how badly I mucked up Aneurin Barnard's name on a previous episode, the likelihood is high. But
God, I hope you're doing it wrong again so that this can be a twofer.
no, I mean, this will mean nothing to you. I watch enough of The Chase to have heard it pronounced multiple times. Don't ask. But what do you know of the Welsh nation, Chloe?
Actually, I don't think anything.
I love that. I'm the one who's going to get in trouble with the Welsh listener.
Super furry animals. Rare bit. That's it.
Well, we're definitely going to enjoy our little chat, Fitz, because on this episode, to celebrate the ongoing series Red Dragon, which predominantly takes place in Wales, our guest this week is writer Rob Williams. I'm sure he will be delighted with my co-host's complete lack of knowledge about his national identity. This is In Orbit every Wednesday, Earthlets.
Get 2000 AD now. Get 2000.
Boragthung, Earthlets, welcome to In Orbit every Wednesday. I am your host, Molchar. This is your host, Chloe. And on this episode, we are joined by writer Wob Williams.
Wob Williams.
That's staying in.
Oh yeah. I'm not stopping recording now. Rob Williams to talk about Dead Dragon. No, to talk about
Hello, Michael. Yes. Hello.
The whole episode in baby talk, please.
Oh yeah. You know what? I'd been practicing saying hello in Welsh just to be nice, and now I don't feel like it.
Well, you call me Wob, which is an outrage. We've gone into a Walter the Wobot episode, unexpectedly.
We have. Apologies, Earthlets. Clearly, last week's episode has resulted in me catching Chloe's cold across the Atlantic.
Yay!
So I'm not operating at full level, if indeed I ever do. Anyway, welcome, Rob.
Hello.
To Annoy every Wednesday to talk about Red Dragon, which is the Zenith tie-in story currently running in 2000 AD. Thought it'd be, we're a few episodes in, so I thought it'd be an excellent time to rope you in. This week's prog is 2000 AD prog 2456, which would include amongst its episode part 6 of Red Dragon. Let us start at the beginning. Explain to us the genesis of this series.
The genesis of the series. I think I was asked if I'd be interested in doing something in the Zenith world, and I kind of very quickly, I think, thought doing something with Zenith was probably a mistake. And then a dirty trick was played, and the Welsh card was played, and I was asked if I'd like to do something with Red Dragon, which is unfair.
And as anybody knows from your career, you cannot resist the Welsh angle.
It is.
I mean, bear in mind, listeners, this is a man who, within 4 pages of his first attempt at a Punisher story,
I resent the word attempt.
had the Punisher going to the bloody Brecon Beacons.
Because that's where the SAS trained. There was a perfectly I didn't just have him go to Hereford for a nice day out in the market. No, I mean, yeah, you could probably entice me into a trap with a sort of like a lava braid on a piece of string or something. I would like follow it. Yeah, the Red Dragon thing, in all seriousness, was a dirty trick because I think like a lot of people. I mean, Red Dragon when he first appeared in Zenith in about what was it, 87. I mean, that storyline had a huge effect on me, and not because it's such a well crafted, and if no one's read it, they should. It's such a well crafted, beautiful piece of writer manipulation of an audience, like one of the best actually, where Grant sort of gave us this redemption story and made us love this character, and then things happened. I won't spoil. So that had an effect when I was probably about 17 at peak sort of comic reading age. But also, I mean, it was genuinely a bit. I grew up in the South Wales Valleys in the Rhondda Valley, a very industrialised area, and in the 80s, it was particularly sort of grim. It can be fairly grim these days, but it's like in the 80s, it was properly sort of like at its sort of peak of being a sort of a place you had to watch yourself. But there was a sort of certain sort of undercurrent of sort of violence everywhere you went. And to read a character like Shadwell Reese back then was kind of like who Grant's, let us not forget, is a very, very good writer, and he did sound like people I knew, and that was an extraordinary thing, to actually have a Welsh character who didn't sound like, let's say, Banshee in the X-Men, who just like you. God bless Chris Claremont. You imagine has never met an Irish person in his entire life. It was all Begorra. But Shadwell Reese did sound well. Anyway, so that all had an effect. So, and horribly, a kind of story started to sort of suggest itself to me about what I would do. I was pretty clear that like the new adventures of Red Dragon would be a terrible idea. Bringing Red Dragon back from the dead would be an appalling idea. But then I thought, well, I could do this with it. And I was pretty sure that it was a story and an approach that I didn't think anyone would like. And weirdly, I'm bloody minded enough to think that appeals sometimes. But I kind of almost like a true detective kind of investigation into the heritage of Red Dragon, and a character going to the valleys and trying to dig up some of the realities behind the kind of like the rather kind of Dylan Thomas romanticized image of a sort of like the sort of hedonistic sort of Celtic sort of character, but then you actually sort of look into it and you go, this is a pretty tragic character, and I think there's a line in it I really like, which is about alcoholism is just basically a form of suicide, but one which allows you to hurt other people along the way. And I believe that's true because, I've sort of lost a good friend to sort of alcoholism a few years ago. And also, I mean, this kind of approach to the story, it's probably one big long sort of round of therapy for me in dealing with sort of my attitudes towards where I'm from and my relationship with the place. And then before you knew it, I kind of wrote the story down and sort of went, oh God, I really like this. I mean, I've got to be honest. I wrestled with it for a long time about whether or not I should do it, because it was the first time going back into the Zenith universe in decades. I thought it's probably on a hide into nothing. All these things, and then eventually, the story just hung around with me, and I went, oh, do you know what? I really like this, and so that was why I did it.
One thing reading the story so far, just to tie into what you were saying then, that you have brought out is Red Dragon's distance from the other members of Cloud9. They very much kind of represented the hippie, the psychedelic. They were very much the 60s, whereas Red Dragon always seemed like an outlier.
Yes.
And so, that sense of being an outsider in your own family,
yeah,
effectively, that's quite a stark kind kind of element to the beginning of this story. It it's interesting with any story that revisits, I guess, that you've do you feel you have to kind of tiptoe around what already exists, or is it just a case of using it as a launch pad?
It's a bit of both, I think. Basically, you do your research, and if you want to do something like this, and you read, I read the Zenith books, and I read them again, and I read them again, sort of several times, and tried to sort of get my head around, I think it's like, but then what you're building on is kind of like snippets in a way, because I think Ruby Fox at one point says of Shadwell Reese, I forget the exact word, but it's like he was always getting in fights, and we just didn't really get on, or something like that. We didn't really understand each other, or something along those lines. And then you build out from that, and you sort of, and then with the world and the version of Shadwell that we're portraying here, the history we're giving him, it's very easy to go. And I think that, again, there's a line in it where he sort of says about, like, the rest of them sort of being sort of, posh English, look down on him. But then I think there's a bit of a caption writing, like, it goes back to sort of an interview I made up that, like, Peter St. John did in Rolling Stone magazine, and saying they didn't feel that at all. They just thought he was naive. So he's got this self-imposed kind of like, oh well, it's an English Welsh kind of like thing, because he is the only, as far as I'm aware, he's the only sort of non-English character in Cloud9. So you can build that type of thing up more in your head, and other people sometimes just aren't seeing it at all. You know what I mean? And sometimes you create your own problems. I think Shadwell as a character is someone, as we see, who does continually create his own problems. He's very well intentioned, I think, but he's not as sophisticated, and he's not as probably as he's not a strategic thinker at all if you compare him to a lot of the other members of Cloud9. But then, of course, we see what Cloud9 turn into if you read Zenith along the way, and it turns out, Shadwell is, for all his faults, is one of the goodies, but very flawed.
You said that this was partially like you unpacking where you're from. And I like, is that kind of a good exorcism to have? Like, because there are tons of people who when they write stories, especially based on, a place or a culture that they come from, it is like kind of unpacking that and putting the puzzle together in kind of in a therapy session sort of way. Is that effective in comics? Like, did that feel good for you to be able to kind of put that down in this particular story?
I don't know if it feels good. It's just, I put it this way. I mean, I think, but for whatever reason, because of the weight of, like, the only person to write this character before is Grant Morrison, who's one of the best writers we've had in comics. So there's that weight. There's how beloved, not just how beloved the Zenith stories are, but how much I enjoyed them at the time. And then I thought, if I'm going to write a Red Dragon series, I'm not just gonna. I'll put it this way. I think every time I sat down to write this, I put a lot of weight on myself to write it well. Now, whether or not it is written well or not, but I think I've put a lot into it. And the prose, for instance, is like, of the captions, a lot of thought and weight has been put into a lot of it, in a way that sometimes, if you write something like a Dread, I mean, not all Dreads, there can be there's a heaviness and everything to certain Dreads, as we know, but sometimes some stories you can be a bit, this is a bit of fun. Red Dragon, every time I sat down to write Red Dragon, it felt like there was a lot of weight there, and a lot of things, it is. And I wanted Paddy Goddard. I wanted someone to draw that part of the world who knew it. I absolutely would have hated for someone. It could have been a really good artist, but just what their imagination of what that world is. Paddy knows what that world is. I had a Zoom call with him, and I tried to sell him on it, and I just kind of went, look, there's no superheroes in the bits you just. I was completely blunt with him. I said, but you do know exactly what. So this world of the valleys and what it feels like and how oppressive, the tone it's got and the mood it's got. And I think Paddy's done an extraordinary job on that. And I asked Paddy to kind of dirty up his inks a bit as well, because I felt it needed that. So put it this way, for good or ill, there is a sincere attempt at like an honesty about
sincerity to it. Maybe not a good thing, but a sincerity.
right. There is a strong attempt to do justice to not just what's come before in Zenith, but also to do justice to the world and the characters, and to not have them feel like cliches and you know, it feels like that's the kind of, it feels like the valleys I grew up in, basically. Yeah. I should give a bit of credit to Simon Fraser as well, because basically, I mean, my initial intention was to do pretty much for it to be all Red Dragon in the Valleys timeline. And then I kind of went, well, maybe we'll have a few flashback sort of scenes. And then I spoke to Simon Fraser about it, and Simon Fraser, and we were coming off doing Hershey, and Simon Fraser said that you know, you've got to have more of the Cloud9 stuff. People are really going to want that, I think. And I kind of thought about it, and then the idea came of like, I really like the idea of having the past be this colourful, bright, optimistic world where anything is possible, not just for Cloud9 and for Shadwell Reese, but for Britain. You know, it's Cool Britannia, it's King's Road, it's the 60s, you know, when it's the Beatles, and it's, you know, All You Need Is Love and all that era. And then I like the flash to sort of forward to Britain in 2025, which is very black and white, and we've been through Brexit, and there's a danger of a reform government, and we seem to be hurtling down the slope towards fascism, and I thought, yeah, let's do, yeah. So it's almost like a Wizard of Oz thing, you know, the color of one storyline against the black and white of another story.
Yeah, it's definitely a contrast in a good way. But there is definitely a contrast there. It feels very much a part of the same story while being something entirely different.
Yeah, and again, having Steve Yeowell come on board and draw that part was just fantastic. You know what I mean?
It's so good.
And it also it assuaged my kind of like my anxieties about going into that world. It almost felt like, well, you know, Steve. It feels proper because Steve's drawing it, but also I would say I think it's the best work I've seen from Steve, and you know, in some time, and I think having Dylan Teague color it really helps as well. But I think Steve's done an amazing job on it.
Oh yeah, it's stunning. Like, it's gorgeous.
Yeah,
what a cool idea too, to have him doing like those particular parts.
Yeah. It's but again, it's like he did like in I think it's in book 4. There's a couple of one or two panels which go back to that era and deal with some of the things, and it's amazing what I've been able to kind of parlay out of what Grant and Steve did in about like 2-3 panels in flashback of just like, oh yeah, we had an argument, the plan was this, and you know, and that's why Cloud9 fell apart. But then it's just piecing together other parts from the Zenith books and sort of putting a little timeline together and sort of, yeah.
Well, one of the things about Zenith is of course that 2000 AD hasn't really done superheroes. Whereas this is your second time doing superheroes effectively for 2000 AD, because you did the 10 seconders, which was which was in the same kind of mental space, because that was very much, you know, what, you know, when superheroes come to Earth, they're going to be gods.
Yeah.
And how do you fight back against something that's a god, you know? But you've also had a lot of experience doing American superheroes, because you did Suicide Squad and various other things for the big two. Define, encapsulate for us the fundamental difference between writing for those and writing for this.
What in 90 seconds? That's very difficult.
Yeah. Come on.
Well, I mean, I think 10 Seconders was at the heart of it. What the 10 Seconders was, it was meant thematically. It was meant to be American comics versus 2000 AD, and the American comics were the big godlike superheroes, and the 2000 AD, this scrappy, acerbic, sweary. Group of resistance who were trying to sort of battle against this overwhelming tide of American sort of superheroes. So that was the whole idea of 10 Seconders. I mean, look, there is. I can go through all the things we know 2000 AD is, which is sort of like very violent and traditionally and black humor and acerbic and all the things we love it for, And I think more so than you can. But you can do those things kind of in the with the American superheroes, but just not as well. Certain people have just you look at things like how Grant took his kind of aesthetic from Zenith and effectively took it into Justice League and Batman and the X-Men, and it's and what Alan Moore did, going from things like not quite the same, DR and Quinch, to sort of going across this.
It's doing Marvel Man.
Doing Marvel Man, yes,
Miracle Man. Yeah.
Yes, yeah. I mean, I think there's more. It's always interesting how far you can. I know 2000 he started out as a kids comic, but it's like it doesn't necessarily feel like it is these days. So you can push it.
Now it's a kids comic.
Yeah, I mean, and look at Vertigo and the whole Vertigo. I know that's not superheroes per se, but that is effectively, as we know, came from 2000 AD and the British invasion and all that. So it's kind of, I don't know. I just think there is all I can do is I can say even with things with Zenith, I think when there's fights between superhumans in Zenith, people die. There's just it's not, people do not get punched and just kind of it's pretty fatal for something or other, and maybe that's a little definition of sort of how 2000 AD happens. This stuff. It was the same with 10 Seconders. It was general. They were called the 10 Seconders because if you encountered a superhuman, you would probably last 10 seconds. Basically, that was the title. So I think there's more a feeling of trying to push realism a little bit more at that that sort of construct, but whether or not it benefits from that, maybe that's why 2000 AD has steered clear from superheroes for the most part.
It's always that that element of at its heart, 2000 AD's does well when it takes an existing genre, flips it on its head, guts it, and then basically proudly displays the cadaver for all to see. You even just in Prog 1, those are all genre stories. They're all existing concepts, really. They're tweaks. They've got a nice angle. There's a nice hook on all of them. But ultimately, they are recognizable genres. And then you go through all the great success stories, and there are exceptions, of course. But so many of them are 2000 AD creators doing something radical with something that genre that already exists, with an idea that people will recognize, and the reason why it's fresh and interesting is because they're doing something fresh and interesting with it that no one's ever really done before.
I hope so. Yeah, I mean, I think that's the calling card, isn't it? I mean, it's just and there is still, I hope, sort of a thing, with 2000 AD is seen as if even something like Red Dragon is just it's not just going to be superheroes fighting superheroes. We are going to have something to say here, and that's the intention going in. So it'll be for others to choose.
But also, I guess with a character like Shwmae Reese, it's exactly the thing that you mentioned, and if by this point, if you're listening and you've not read Zenith, go and read Zenith and then restart this podcast, or and definitely check out the episode we did a few weeks ago where Chloe and I waxed lyrical about the entirety of Zenith. But the point you made about characters die. You've got that Rocky montage, training montage, all the way through, building up to this great confrontation against the Nazi superhero.
Yeah.
And he lasts a second.
Yeah.
He's blown out of the sky and he waves his sort of crisp skull in Zenith's face.
He says, "Oh dear, I think I've broken him," which is just awful. But that's one thing that Zenith does brilliantly well. Is like the bad guys in Zenith are extraordinarily good bad guys. They are horrible. They take a great glee in eviscerating superheroes, and
everything's very to the point with the villain. That's part of what makes it so menacing.
Yeah, and Grant is very good at that. Is sort of like it makes you, you're in the hands of someone who knows what they're doing, and sort of it will make you care about a certain character, and then sort of and then bad things happen to that character, and there's a real kind of visceral sort of gut punch to that. And I do think Red Dragon is one of the best sort of gut punches I've ever read in comics in terms of And that was one thing, with this series is an attempt to kind of like be true to that and sort of and not distill that, because that would be bad.
You get to carry on the gut punches.
To carry on the gut punches and he's bless him. I feel rather fondly of Shadwell at the end of this series. I really do, but he's not. It's not a happy tale.
It's not a happy tale, but at least it was built by a guerrilla Operation Welsh army, apparently.
Yeah, maybe. Yes, indeed.
This is how they weasel their way into our culture.
We took Steve Yeowell on as honorary Welsh for this. Die Yeowell, we're going to call him from now on. Yeowell the Art, as he's known down the shops these days.
Down the shops.
When he goes down the shops. Here comes Yeowell the Art, they say.
He's working with that strange Rob boy.
Oh, poor Steve.
No, but it is as we've already alluded to. It is really nice that this series is grounded in the original. That's the anchor. That's Steve's art. And it's been nice with the reprints that we've done. Oh, bloody hell, over the last decade, that people are actually getting to revisit Zenith and see for itself, not just that it's Grant's first big work, and as we said in our episode the other week, forms the basis of so much. It contextualizes so much of what follows. All his work through the 90s and into the 2000s and even beyond. But also for me, it shows that Steve is one of the underappreciated greats of 2000 AD.
There's Steve's black and white work, and just how that heavy black he laid down in like those early Zenith books. And I think in like books, in the third book, with like the multiversey kind of thing, where they're battling and running across multiverses. Yeah, there's some pretty and the stuff he's asked to draw as well. And like, let's not forget, it's 2000 AD, so every page is very dense, and there's about like 400 characters in it. There's a real starkness to sort of Zen. The designs are great, Steve does some absolutely fantastic work. There's one little thing I found in it which I absolutely loved, which was like the first time Zenith is trying to find out that he can use telepathy, and Peter St. John is just like in a lotus pose in midair over London, with clouds beneath him, and all of a sudden there's just like it was like St. John, and it's drawn like big to fill the panel, like, and so Peter St. John's head sort of snaps back, and he goes, "Quiet there, for God's sake," and it's a really amazing. You just look at it and you go, "That is comics." Like, comics does that type of thing so well, and it's sort of beautifully depicted. So yeah, I don't think Steve gets the credit he deserves. Definitely.
And can we expect a cameo Robot Archie appearance?
Acid
in the
Archie,
series?
love
Acid
Archie.
Archie.
I can reveal on this podcast there's a 24-part Acid Archie. No, I don't know. No, we'll have to wait and see.
You know, it's one of those random things that, like, if you were reading 2000 AD in the 80s, that you remember is Robot Archie suddenly turning up in I think is it book 2 or book 3?
Book 3, I think. He turns up in the back of
three.
the Tyrannosaurus Rex, which is just like a pretty awesome
And
final page.
when we do conventions, they're the standard things that people, you know, they're not necessarily regular 2000 AD readers. There's the standard things they will always mention. They'll always mention the Dread movie. They'll always mention Judgment on Gotham.
Which Dread movie?
Well, it's exactly the same conversation every time. They'll ask us what we think about the two movies, and then they'll say the same thing about those two movies. Judgment on Gotham and Acid Archie.
Really?
In Zenith. Like, that seems to have imprinted itself onto an entire generation of minds. It's such a weird thing.
Like,
I think if I remember right, the last time Acid Archie's seen, he's dancing. He's doing his own single on stage at like a Top of the Pops thing in book 4, which is pretty not the best thing.
And but I think it's one of the things that speaks to how slow culture was before the internet. Like it had to spread either by mass media, which had various gatekeepers in the way, or it had to spread by word of mouth. So for many people, like, their first interaction with a new subculture might be an appearance on Top of the Pops, or someone mentioning it in the NME, or their mate suddenly who'd been on holiday to fucking America coming back and talking about grunge or something. And I suspect that for an awful lot of young readers, that Acid Archie was their first interaction with rave culture.
Well, also Zenith was Zenith was so much embedded in the music scene. He was a pop star, and it was like, and I think Andrew Harrison, the journalist, he posted on Facebook recently, like, because he worked for, it wasn't Uncut, it's gone. Can you remember which magazine? It was a big Select music magazine. Select. He was the editor, and he did an interview with Zenith in actually, you know, because Zenith was a pop star in Select, which I think Steve did some exclusive sort of drawings for. Like, it was a proper sort of interview with a pop star. So, I mean, all these things Shadwell Reese missed. I don't believe there was a novelty single from Shadwell Reese. Something relating to missing his leak or something. I don't know. I that's not appearing in this version of Red Dragon.
Well, it's an excellent series so far.
Thank you. I like that. It's like so far.
So far, yeah. Don't screw it up. Don't you know? You got to stick the landing. But no, very much enjoying it. And as you say, I guess in comics as a whole, the temptation is always to return to that individual character. You know, to resurrect them or do more adventures of kind of thing. So having this kind of bittersweet examination of what he means, what he meant.
Well, it's not. I mean, there is. I should say, hopefully, there is a strong undercurrent of violence and threat throughout the storyline, and that does come to fruition. It's not just a bunch of characters wandering around the valleys going, "Oh shit!" Things.
I mean, we kind of assumed that would be the case. Like, that would be a very un-2000 AD thing.
The working title was "Oh Shadwell," and I was like, it was shouldn't be. That was every episode was going to end with that. But there is a threat, and bad things happen. and that's sort of been percolating throughout. There's a mystery at the heart of it.
Well, I want to know how long we have to wait after the end of this series until Dredd goes to Wales, because I mean, why not?
I forget who I said it to. I said it to someone, either you or PJ Holden, in the past. I said, if I ever do a story where Dredd goes to Wales, it's time for the vaudeville hook to come in from off panel.
That's when we got to play you off the stage.
Yeah.
I've got two maxims with pitching for comics. One is when you go, it's so and so, ... in space, right? The idea factory is empty at that point, right? And it's probably best, again, the vaudeville hook comes in. And I think Judge Dredd goes ... to Wales. Although that's not to say they were perfectly. I mean, Garth took Dredd to Ireland, and Alan and John took him to Calhab. You know, let's not forget. I don't want to besmirch a noble tradition in.
I mean, someone did ask us if we'd ever featured Welsh judges previously, and there was the John Smith Strange and Dark series where they ended up in Wales, but I don't remember any specifically Welsh judges.
Well, no specifically Welshisms, but you know what? At least you know that if that's when we have to, to hook you off the writing stage, you're gonna have a great time with it.
At that point, it'll be time to take him away. And are you warm enough? Yeah, that's what happens to all droids. You know, get him a nice drink. Is he all right? Sort of bring that in. I mean, that's what all droids break eventually.
Well, on that note, what a way to end an episode.
Holds out.
Thanks, Rob.
In the spirit of the entire Red Dragon storyline.
In the spirit of just looping back around to being grim.
Yeah.
Well, I hope you've enjoyed this episode.
Thrill power.
As Rob has really ticked up the old thrill power meter.
We're all eventually going to be bad at what we do. It's.
I'm taking eventually as a win. Just a win. There's thrill power in Dredd at the minute. I mean, you know what I mean.
Let's not beat around the bush. You're on a bit of a roll at the moment. You know, and To the Sea Return is going very well with Henry.
Do you want to say don't mess that up as well? It's so good so far.
I think that's implied, Rob.
Okay.
You know.
Yeah, but it's Henry Flint, and it's so Henry is a genius. Let's face facts.
Yeah.
So it can't be a bad thing. No, it's a lot of fun. That one. It's just a pure fun horror. You know, I said to Henry off the back of Judge Dredd: A Better World, I said, "What do you want to do next?" And he went, "I want to do a horror." I was like, "Right, we shall do a horror then." Basically, so
I'll do a horror.
Say again, sorry?
We shall do a horror.
We two shall do a horror. Yeah. I mean, I went, Judge Dredd goes to Wales.
Surely the most horror of horrors. Well,
True.
We are out of time. I love Wales. Just as an aside, I'm doing this to mock Rob, not because I hate Wales. I absolutely adore Wales.
Sounds like bordering on the racism there, Mike.
Is that it?
Yeah.
Is that it?
Okay.
We
have run out of time.
This has been a very special end of the episode, brought to you by Warring Nations.
And don't forget, all droids break eventually.
Yes.
What do you mean eventually? Like, I called you Wob. I think
Wob.
My route to obsolescence is well on the way.
MechQuake MechQuake is outside the building, warming up as
permanently.
Yeah,
permanently. But we shall be back in 7 days' time. For more from the Galaxy's Greatest Podcast. Do make sure you check out 2000 AD Prague 2455, which is out this week. if you want to go back to the beginning of Red Dragon, it started in Prague 2451. So get the back issues or go onto 2000 AD app and have a look at that. It's I'll turn Rob's stream off while I say it's excellent and very good, and you should definitely read it.
It's better than
anyway. Welcome back, Rob. You what?
It's better than I made it sound. Yeah.
But yes, in the meantime, thank you very much for listening. Please do spread the word and make sure that if you are not already subscribed to the podcast on your preferred podcast app, then please do go along and make that happen. Drop us a comment. Actually, it's something I've not asked for a long time. Is drop us a comment on iTunes, or not iTunes anymore, is it? That's showing my age. On Apple Podcasts. Or the podcast provider of your choice. But thank you very much, Rob.
Thank you for having me both.
Yeah, it's wonderful. And I look forward to more entertaining episodes that definitely won't make me feel old.
What? Do you mean the podcast or do you mean Red Dragon?
I mean, why not both? I mean, have you met Chloe?
Yes. Hello. What was your noise earlier? I like. There it is.
I mean, very much. Before we started recording this episode, there was a slight snafu on the American end of this podcast when someone forgot to factor in that the clocks went back.
We talked
the weekend.
Not here yet. There's a 2-week overlap. I won't hear it. Do not come for me, Michael.
Someone woke up 2 hours early is basically what I'm saying.
But as Chloe pointed out earlier, we're not farmers. I'm pretty sure. I've looked into Wikipedia and there's no farming history, as far as I'm aware of, for any three of us.
Yeah. But yeah, I got a message just going, I've had 3 Red Bulls and I look forward to making this your problem. So on the basis of that, this episode has gone very well, I think.
I think so.
I think so. But then I live in denial most of the time. I think it went really well. It was great.
Yes, everything's great, and then you get pulled off by a hook. Like,
well, whatever gets through the night, obviously.
With 2000 AD, it's less a shepherd's hook and more like a Rigelian hot shot that just kind of knocks you out of the frame.
That's probably for the best. Let's face facts, to be honest.
We're rambling. Tune in more from the Galaxy Creator podcast. It's goodbye from me.
Oh, is it still recording? Oh, no.
Yes, it's still recording. Of course it's bloody recording.
Dun, 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 dun.
Oh, no.
Splendid birth frig, Earthlets.
See you next week.
Get 2000 AD now. Get 2000.
Well, thanks for joining us on In Orbit every Wednesday, Earthlets. Make sure you like and subscribe and go along to 2000 AD, where you'll be able to subscribe to 2000 AD and the Judge Dredd magazine. Sign up to our newsletter and you'll get hundreds of pages of free comics to download. And download the app for your Apple and Android devices. Now, don't forget, Earthlets, this is the 2000 AD universe. We just live in it.